Welcome to the Office of Global Engagement's presentation on optional practical training. When applying for optional practical training, you're going to work with your primary advisor. Your primary advisor you can schedule an appointment with on our Schedule an Appointment page on the Global Engagement website. But the primary purpose of today's discussion is make sure that you understand eligibility for OPT and how you can maintain your status, as well as the timelines and various materials needed to apply for OPT. Remember that you always need to have your passport valid 6 months into the future. If your passport is expiring, you want to make sure that you renew it prior to applying for OPT, so you have that valid passport in the packet you'll be mailing to USCIS. Your I-20 must be valid into the future, at least for the semester that you're planning on applying for OPT. So if you need to do an extension because you're not going to be ready to apply or you're not finished with your degree, that extension needs to be processed prior to applying for OPT. If we need to shorten your program, we will do that in order to apply for OPT, as you can only apply within 90 days of your completion date. When you're applying for OPT, what a lot of students may not realize is that at that time, you are still sponsored by Utah State University. This means that you still are required to report updates and biographical changes. That includes your address, your phone number, your email, and we do require you to continue to use the International Students and Scholars portal for all of those requests. So if you need a travel signature or other things while you're on OPT, again, you need to utilize the portal. That sponsorship is what's allowing you to work legally here in the US. OPT is valid for 12 months after you complete your degree and allows you to work in your field. When you're working with your biographical information, you're going to send all of those changes within 10 days. Any updates will be updated in the SEVIS portal. And after you get your EAD card, you'll actually have the opportunity to log into the portal yourself and make some edits. But we still require you to use the International Students and Scholars portal. Some things to point out that are important is that you all have received an I-20. And on your I-20, when you arrived at Utah State University under your major code, you have what's called a CIP code. That CIP code is important as it determines if you're going to be able to apply for the extension after the standard OPT. If it's a STEM code, that means that after your 12 months, you're able to obtain an additional 24 months at the end of your OPT, but it is another request process. If you're not in a STEM code, that means you're not eligible for that extension, so it is something to be aware of. That means that you're limited to 12 months, and at the end of that 12 months, you will have a 60-day grace period. If you're applying for the STEM extension, you have to apply 90 days before that standard OPT ends. You're not able to apply in that grace period. So knowing when your CIP code is STEM or not allows you to plan for that timeline. The same things, if you need travel signatures, you need updates, you need to, talk to anyone in our office, we can still make changes to your I-20 up until your program is completed. Now, standard work options for international students. In order to work off campus, the only way you can work off campus is if you're participating in curricular practical training or optional practical training. Today, we're focusing on post-degree optional practical training, as that's the primary benefit that most students take advantage of. If you have questions about pre-degree optical practical training, you'll want to check out the other training videos. So OPT is available to an F1 student if they're working in their major field of study. Now, the government wants to make sure that you're not taking advantage of being here just to be here. So this benefit is provided to you because you completed a degree. And it is always only for 12 months, that first initial request that we're going to talk about today. And it's available to you at each level of study. So we will have students who will do an associate's and participate in OPT. Then they'll matriculate to a bachelor's degree, and participate in OPT, and so on. So those are things to think about if you're looking at how do you continue your progress in the academic setting, as well as your opportunities to participate in this program. Once you've exhausted OPT at these levels, your only option is to do a change of status if you're planning to continue to work. So looking into other types of visas like an H-1B or other, definitely are an option to you, and definitely something to look at when you're looking at employers that hire international students. Are you eligible? If during your degree you participated in CPT, which is curricular practical training in the form of an internship, and for many international students, that's in the summertime, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of how many months that you participated. Because if you have exceeded 365 days, you will automatically lose your OPT benefit. So some students really want that option to work, and we have unfortunately seen students who worked exactly 365 days and that OPT was lost. So we tend to recommend that you don't work more than 11 and a half months. And the reason for that is that things happen, maybe we can't shorten your program, you can't get a new I-20, maybe you miscounted how many days. So something to keep in mind is making sure that you track that time that you've worked on CPT. Many programs don't allow for, 11 and a half months. And so it's typically not a problem for international students. But for some majors, there is that possibility. So be very careful that your CPT keeps under that minimum. Now, in order to apply for OPT, your department has to verify your completion date. A lot of students wonder, what does that mean? Does that mean that my degree has to be awarded? What we're looking for is an estimated completion date. So for an undergraduate student, it's always tied to the last day of the semester. For a graduate student, they can apply after they successfully defend. And many students who are graduate will have questions about when should I apply, what should I do, because maybe their defense date is late in the semester. We recommend that you make an appointment with your immigration advisor to talk about that timeline because there are some other considerations. We'll talk about a few pointers later in this slide. Plan A master's and postdoctoral students can only apply after they successfully defend or if they have a job offer. So that job offer may make it so you're able to apply before you defend, which is a great thing if you're trying to start working for a company on a set date. We don't want to restrict your ability to be able to apply for OPT, but your department has to make sure that you are on track and that this is related to your field of study and that this makes sense. If you don't have a job offer, you are limited to waiting till after. So undergraduates, pretty straightforward. Graduate students, you may have some additional questions about that timeline. So with OPT, one thing to keep in mind if you're having some difficulty finding a job is that you can still work on campus, but remember that it has to be related to your field of study. Often we'll have students who are looking for work and they're running out of time to report employment to USCIS, and they find out that their department has a position for them and they think, oh, I can't take this. Remember that on campus or off campus is allowed. Either in both situations, we can only report full-time work, and we are reporting the employer, so who you're working for, where you're working, the site of activity, and then the supervisor information. So you're going to obtain an offer letter regardless of where that position is that contains all of that information, and we'll report it to USCIS. But the big thing here is the 40 hours a week. We are authorizing full-time employment. So I've had students come and ask us, hey, I have 2 jobs. Can you authorize this? We are not going to authorize 2 full-time jobs. So make sure that you're picking the job that makes the most sense for you and your situation. Who processes my application? The reason why this is important to talk about is that you're going to upload all of your documents into the International Students and Scholars portal that we oversee as Global Engagement. We're having you submit all those documents online so we can review them and make sure that you have completed them out fully and accurately. But what then you're going to do is you're going to print all those documents off and you're going to make copies of all of your passport, your I-20, and you're going to mail those into USCIS. The U.S. Customs and Immigration Services is going to charge you a $410 fee. This fee is non-refundable. If you don't apply in time and they cash that check, you're not getting back. If you apply and you don't finish and they've already processed your OPT, there's no way to cancel that. So you want to make sure that when you apply that you intend to try to work. What we do is we give you a new I-20 that has to go into this packet. So don't gather all these documents and mail them in. You have to have a new I-20 from your immigration advisor to mail in this packet. So in the example, if you graduated on April 29th and you selected an OPT start date of May 6th, you would not be able to start work if on May 6th you didn't have the physical EAD card. EAD card is an employment authorization document. That EAD card is required for an employer to actually start you physically working in the system. So it is improper for you to say you're going to start on May 6th, and even if you don't have that card to start anyway, that would be illegal employment. So make sure you have the start date selected that you want, that you have your EAD card in hand, and then if you have to let your employer know that you need to delay that because you haven't received the EAD card, hopefully they'll work with you. Most employers are pretty flexible because they know how great you are, that they want to keep you on board. And if your EAD card is going to be like a week or two because you applied early, great. So something to keep in mind is that start date starts another clock. So in our example, if your start date was May 6th, and you didn't get your EAD card until May 12th, you'd be using a few days of unemployment. What's going to happen is your start date is that's going to kick off the 90-day unemployment period. So you're not out of status, you're not here illegally, but you're not able to work until you get that EAD card. And if we hit 91 days, you're in what's called a legal overstay. So at some point, if you haven't found a job and you haven't been able to start work, that starting a job is going to stop that 90-day unemployment clock. And if you haven't had any luck finding a job, you need to at some point make plans to leave the country. Because at 91 days, again, you're going to be in a legal overstay. So students are obviously, they have many challenges. They have this timeline that adds some flexibility, but finding work is still often difficult. So make sure you leverage all of your resources. You reach out to career services, you talk to your department, you find out wherever you have any networking to do, because those will only help you kind of get that job solidified in this timeline that you have. After the 90-day period, we are not able to report work. And that means that you've lost that OPT opportunity. In the system, we always advise students, when they've left the country to, before they leave the country to send in a cancellation, because it, even though we're past the 90 days, continues to do a countdown clock. And we've had that clock impact students who've come back for another degree at a later date if it's still within that 12-month period. So letting us know that you're leaving the country and that you're departing the US without participating in OPT is also just as equally important. So we say, you're supposed to report any changes within 10 days. Leaving the country is a change you need to let us know about. So all of this happens in the International Student and Scholars Portal. You can apply, you can submit your application, and that's what we usually request, is that there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of content in our website. And when you fill out those forms, you're going to find that you have more questions. So what we recommend that you do is fill out the forms, and then we're going to talk about the dates that you submitted and the timeline to make sure you understand that means that, that you can only start at this date and all of that other application material. It's hard for us to talk to you in hypotheticals. Like if we don't know when you're defending, if you haven't scheduled a defense date, if you're unsure. So we're happy to meet with you if you need to talk through some of these ideas. But if you want us to review those documents or you have questions about those documents, we're going to ask that you complete that request first and then make an appointment with us, because we'll be able to see what you've started. Sending your application. So after we've reviewed everything and we've given you a new I-20, you're going to send your application. You can send it certified mail because you can get a receipt. USCIS actually sends you a receipt, and it used to be that was only by mail, but now you can sign up to have that sent to you by email and text. And I recommend that because if you get that notification that you're missing something, you're able to start gathering those documents. If you are just getting it by mail, mail is a lot slower. And say you have a denial because you forgot to sign your I-765 form. Well, if you had signed up to get an email or a text, you would have known that a lot earlier. So at least when you got it, you knew you needed to run into the office and get that taken care of. So that 120 days is really challenging. And all you can do is keep applying for work. You do not need to have a job to be able to apply for OPT, but if you've already started the OPT process, you'll know how difficult or how easy it is going to be for you to get a job. And so it helps you plan. And then on that 120 days, you're not able to call USCIS if you haven't received your card until we hit 121. So some of the things that confuse students, because we have this ISSS portal that we use, and we're reporting information through SEVIS, and SEVIS is managed by SEVP. That's the Exchange Visitor Program portal. SEVP has created a portal for students to log in so they can kind of monitor what's been reported in the system. And that has some more accountability. You're able to update some information in there, but we still require that you send things through our system, because if you've reported employment that is not something that we would authorize, a job, say for instance, it's not in your field of study, and you have issues down the road, you're on your own. So be careful what you're submitting in that portal, because you're verifying that it's true and factual. But it is helpful to look at that content so you know that your address has been updated. And if we haven't updated something for you, you're able to see that it's still inaccurate. So that email from SEVP comes in usually around the time that your work authorization card comes out. So it's not junk. It's one of the things that students wonder if it's spam. So, but if it's about making an account so you can manage your OPT better. Some important considerations. So OPT is still considered temporary work. You're only allowed to work for those 12 months. And so you want to make sure that you're looking the dates on your card, because if you say applied late and they were processing your card, they may change the dates that were requested because you don't have the ability to work during that time period because they're just now getting your card out. So always pay attention to the dates on the card, not what we requested. Even though in most situations they're the same, they're not always the same. And then again, you do not want to work until you have that physical card. Any work before those authorization dates is super challenging, and it could impact your ability to move to another change, a change of status down the road. For instance, if you were hired by an employer and you were talking to them about an H-1B, but then you worked illegally for them, this could cause you some grief. So when you graduated, you had a 60-day period. If you complete the full OPT, so you have 12 months, you can change jobs, but you have to complete that full 12 months in order to be given a 60-day grace period at the end. So that 60-day grace period at the end is, again, it's a time for you to either matriculate to another degree level, transfer to another school and do another degree, make plans to go home. But in that grace period, if you were STEM eligible, you had to apply before the grace period. So again, that's very important that you pay attention to that, because if they receive your application before the grace period, you'll have this buffer where you're able to continue to work. But if you apply after and within that 60-day grace period, it's not possible. We actually lose the ability to request that extension if you've waited too long. So traveling outside of the US while on OPT. So a couple of things. You're not able to apply for OPT from outside the US. And so if you go home in spring semester and you're graduating that spring and you don't come back, you're not able to apply for OPT. So be careful about your travels, especially in your final semester. And then when you apply for OPT, most students have this period of time. So you graduated on April 29th, you selected a start date in the middle of June, and you want to travel during that period of time. We don't recommend it because your I-20 will have ended. The program end date will have shortened to April 29th. Your back of your I-20 shows that you requested OPT, but it hasn't been approved, and you don't have an EAD card. So you have nothing that if you leave the US to re-enter, that a border officer can say, we have reason to let you in. You have nothing that shows that you have status here in the US. And so we always recommend that you wait till you have that EAD card. I always tell students, wait until you have your EAD in hand, you have a job and we've reported it in the system, and then work with your employer to travel. Many students need to update their visa, and that is not important. Remember, you do not need to have a valid visa to be in the US. You only need that visa to get back. And so I have students who will want to leave to go home, renew their visa and see their family, and then have issues getting back. So again, if you don't have all of the pieces and parts, we don't recommend travel. And then there's other considerations right now, with restrictions with COVID and other types of things. You really want to be cautious because things can change on a dime. Countries could be added to a travel restriction list. You might not be able to get out of your own country because of border closures. So travel right now is really challenging, and you would not want to lose a benefit. So when you're applying for OPT, there are some valuable resources. First and foremost, the USCIS website. In our ISSS portal, you're going to be linked directly to this page, but it is important to note because many students will just do a Google search for I-765 and start filling out the form, not realizing that it might be an older form. So you always want to go straight to the source whenever possible. So if you're filling out a USCIS form and you're not on the USCIS website, it's probably not current. So right now, we're on the I-765 application for employment. In here, is the actual form and the instructions. So between the International Students and Scholars portal and the instructions found here, you're able to answer a lot of your questions. The form itself is pretty straightforward, and a lot of students are intimidated by it when they start filling it out, but it is pretty easy. Most of these things it's just making sure that you actually read what they're asking you. The two things that are common mistakes with students when they're filling this out is they often think when it's asking for an alien registration number, when it says a number, that that's your Aggie ID, and that is not true. So be careful of that. And also, you can send things to our office. Many students do not know where they're going to be living. When they apply for OPT, they're not sure if they're going to be in Logan or in Utah, or if they're going to be living with friends while they're looking for work. And so if you're unsure where you're going to be sure to use the Global Engagement address. We're happy to notify you if mail comes in and let you know that you can either pick it up or you can have it then mailed to you by paying for a shipping label. Other commonly asked questions when people are filling out this form is this eligibility category. What do I put in here? Again, if you refer to the I-765 form instructions, it talks about F1 student categories or J student categories. This form is used by so many people who are not just students applying for employment cards. And so if you're an undergraduate or graduate student applying for standard OPT, it's going to be C3B. So that's cat 3 boy. So make sure that you're using the right category. If you're applying for STEM extension, it's going to be C3C. So cat 3 cat. And just make sure that you're following the instructions. Those are pretty common. One of the things that we always advise is if it's not applicable, just put NA in it. You want to make sure that you're filling this out as accurately as possible. But for instance, when you get down to the interpreter or the preparer, you're going to make sure that you just put NA. And that way, don't leave it blank. Just make sure that you fill in it as much as possible. Really important to point out that you cannot have a digital signature. You still have to use what we call a wet signature. So that means with pen and ink, you're going to fill it out in black ink only, your signature and the date. So make sure after you have made all the adjustments to this form, you print it out and you sign it. USCIS does allow some electronic signatures, but the I-76 form is not one of them. So when we go back to USCIS's website, there are information. This is all in our portal as well, on information where to file. But some other things that I wanted to share with you, if you're curious about your major, you can go to Study in the States and you can look up eligibility. What is your CIP code eligible for? Is it STEM eligible for? Because we cannot change what that CIP code is because it's tied to your degree. So it is nice to know, especially when you start a program, am I in a degree that's going to get me where I want to go? And if it's not, then you have some discussion and some decisions to make. So look at your CIP code, make sure that you know that it's STEM. And then if you have any questions, we're always here to help. We're here to help direct you and answer questions and guide you. But we also want to make sure that you're reading the material because there is a lot to understand, and going through the process is the best way. So fill out the forms, establish kind of what you think your timeline is going to look like, and then let's meet. Our contact information is on the screen, and you can visit our website, for any updates and any changes. But our International Student and Scholar Portal is great. We have tutorials, including this one and others, and other information. And you can also reach out to our peer advisor. So go to our schedule an appointment page and make an appointment. Thank you again for joining us. Hope you have a great day.